You want me to say that
hadn't
again?
started recording yet. Well, yeah, because I hadn't started recording yet.
Okay,
But,
well, I'll start again then. Yes,
yes.
it was my
Hello again.
birthday. Yes, and
Yes.
I had a wonderful time, and Paul cooked me a lobster, and that was pretty much it from the fam. But I had such a wonderful time all throughout my birthday evening, sending personal thank yous to all those folks who took the time, minuscule as it may be, because I know what it takes to say happy birthday to somebody who's a
Right.
friend of yours. I mean, it's a click here, it's a
Right.
click there, whatever. And I was determined this year. Just to send a generalized thank you to everybody, because it takes hours, to respond to everybody individually. But, I couldn't do it, Ross. I had to respond to everybody, every single person. And the most important ones for me were from former students like yourself. I mean, who took the time to
Yeah.
actually not only send a little bitty happy birthday, but also took the time like you did, to write something special. I mean, I have to say, even those, especially those former students who still address me as Mrs. Stahl. I mean, I know that's so silly, but it just means so very, very
No,
much.
it's
It's just lovely.
reminiscent. Yeah.
I mean, it's just lovely. What can I tell you? I guess because I spent so much time
So
doing
I
Mrs.
felt
Stahl.
bad because when we recorded, I wanted to say something on Monday's recording session, given that it was the day before your birthday. I even had a
Right.
note to do it, and then we had Mom on at the last minute, and
Mm-hmm.
all of it totally slipped both of our minds because she's the one that
Right.
actually pointed that out, that it was going to be like right around the time we were recording again, when
Yep.
she said hello the week before.
Yeah.
And I used to be really good with, all my friends, saying happy
Mm-hmm.
birthday, Jane, happy birthday, this person, happy
Mm-hmm.
birthday, that person. And then Facebook took away, they stopped sending me the alerts. I got daily alerts for,
Oh,
friends' birthdays. And then they stopped it.
they did?
And,
Oh my goodness. I
yeah,
need to pay attention to that
I
then.
haven't, and it wasn't too big of a deal because at that point I was doing more from a desktop.
Mm-hmm.
And if I had to, I could, get on Facebook on the desktop app or on a website and, just manually check it. But I didn't get
Yeah.
in the habit of doing that.
Yeah.
And so it fell by the wayside. But recently I'm seeing them come back like every other day or
Oh,
every so
yay.
many days.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, I feel bad when I miss somebody.
Yeah.
Especially if I've had the Facebook friends that I've never actually met, rarely even talk to on Facebook. I click, oh, this guy's hot, I'll friend him, or I accept that guy's some other guy's request for the same reason.
Mm-hmm.
But when I miss somebody, like Mrs. Stahl
Oh,
or
God.
Gary Williams, who we need to talk about in
Yeah.
a second,
Hey,
it,
yes.
it's
Yes.
disappointing because they're people that I want to keep in contact with.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So
So,
you
did you
had,
see his show last night?
I did not see it, but I saw that you promoted it and you had it on your
Oh
station.
yeah,
Is that correct?
yeah.
That is so fantastic.
I
That is
didn't.
so, I just love Gary.
We didn't
And
have it on Nerd Radio.
he still refers to me as Mrs. Stahl. And I love him for that. I just do. I know it's really silly, but
I,
I
you
do.
know, I felt bad about that when we recorded the first session when I
Yeah.
was a guest on Be Inspired.
Uh-huh.
Um, we had already been talking back and forth through email
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
rekindling that way, and talked about, which I still want to write for
Right. Right. For
uh,
the expression.
Warrior
Yep.
Fans, their expression. And it's like, wow, she's considering me almost like a contemporary and fellow
Yeah.
journalist. I should
Yes.
probably refer to her as Jane and not Mrs.
Yep.
Stahl.
Yeah.
And then that guy, I forget his name, but he was a graduate, a little older than me,
Mm-hmm.
who
John
aired on
Davis.
Be
John
Inspired the
Davis.
week right after me.
Yep.
Yeah. And
Hmm.
he kept going, "Oh, thanks. It's been such a pleasure, Mrs. Stahl." I'm like, "Oh shit, I feel like such a dick."
Now we have a different relationship. It's okay.
That's good then.
Yeah. No,
So
it's
Gary show last
absolutely
night.
fine. It's absolutely fine. It's
Uh,
absolutely fine.
Gary's show, he mentioned you as one of his favorite guests.
Oh, get out. I loved, oh
Yeah.
my God, that particular episode that I recorded for him. I had no idea what I was going to talk about, but he was so good because he let me, and somehow, inspired, that's the only word I know these days, but somehow inspired me to tell some of my favorite teaching stories. I mean, and for me,
Nice.
it was just a wonderful, wonderful episode. I mean, I got to talk about the forest of knowledge, which is one of my favorite things to talk about. I can't remember what else I talked about on his show, but I know that I felt so good about it. And he was so good at letting me talk because he's so funny and such a
Yeah.
personality
And he was
himself
he was enjoying the
that,
fact that he could occasionally swear in front of you.
well, is that what it was? Because I was so shocked that he
Yeah.
let me talk so much, because I know he likes, he's a personality and
Yeah.
he's just great. And his show is about Gary. And, but I just loved it. I saved it. It's just going to be one of my favorite things when I'm in the home to go back and re-listen to every other day. To
Nice.
remind myself of
So
who I was and what I did. Yeah. Anyway.
to answer your question though, he was not on, we did not broadcast it on Jurg's radio or Talk TV
Oh.
24.
Oh, okay.
I had offered him that, soon after
I
seeing
remember that.
you on
Yep.
there.
Yep. I remember that.
And maybe it was even before. I don't remember. But he turned it down
Right.
because he just said he was going in a different direction with what he was doing.
Right.
And I'm looking at what he's doing now, and it's like exactly the
Dude.
same thing as what we're doing.
Dude. Yeah.
And I feel bad, like, we could be helping each other.
Right.
But
Right.
I also said I had some proposal, and at the time I wasn't on radio yet. It was just
Right. Right.
Talk TV 24, the YouTube channel.
Yep.
And I had a proposal, why you would want to, put your podcast and your show on mine. And it's really the
Right.
same pitch that I use now. It was the
Right.
analogy of having a restaurant. Your
Yep.
channel alone and your brand alone is out there on the highway, and people are either seeing you in passing, or they're
Mm-hmm.
coming to you specifically.
Mm-hmm.
Being on mine is like you have another restaurant location in the food court
Yeah.
at what I say is a high end mall, because we all have excellent channels. We're not McDonald's.
Right.
And
Right.
somebody might come and find your playlist. It would be a playlist on my channel, and they might find it while
Right.
they're there looking for someone else.
Right. 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 You
And
just never know.
he
And
said,
it's
no,
possible because you were so
I think
new
he said he was
and,
taking me too seriously.
oh, okay.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No, it may have been either that you were so new and he wasn't sure what direction you were going in, and or just being so full of what he was already doing, he was afraid that maybe he'd have to add something to his list of things to do, and he wasn't ready to do that. It's hard to know. But
Yeah.
hopefully he will feel
I don't carry
comfortable
the
enough
way.
to come to you. Hopefully he will be comfortable enough to come to you at some point and say, hey, add me to your program list. I don't know. Because it would be uncomfortable, it seems to me,
Yeah.
at this point, for you to ask him again. I don't know.
Oh
Whatever.
yeah, I wouldn't ask him again because I told him I wouldn't. I'm
Good.
not going to. I'm
Okay,
not going to
good.
hound. I'm not going to.
Yeah, no,
I'm
no,
not
that
going to
wouldn't
hound.
be
I'm not
good.
going to kiss ass. But I'm also not going to be. Oh Christ, here's Yerger again.
Yeah,
That kind of
right,
thing. Yeah, if he's not.
right.
He's not interested. That's fine.
No problem.
But what
Yep.
I'm seeing is that other internet radio stations,
Hmm.
we're coming to each other
That's
to
awesome.
cross promote and
It
cross list various
and it
programs.
and it should
That
be that way. I mean, it really should be that
yeah,
way. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so
And
here we
now
are.
he's actually offering. Well, now he's taken a step up. He's kind of doing the same thing I'm doing with Jurg's Radio. He's doing with his channel.
Okay.
He's offering Jane Stahl to
Okay.
develop, be
Fantastic.
inspired, and
Fantastic.
but it kind of sounds like he's taking podcasters from ground zero, like they haven't
Okay.
started yet,
Okay.
and he's
Okay.
coaching them in the
Okay.
beginning process, and here's
Okay.
how do you construct an episode and
Okay.
whatever else. So
Very good. Very
I hope
good.
it works out. He says he signed somebody already, so that's awesome. Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
But
Very
yeah,
good.
you were a favorite guest of his. When I
I'm
comment,
so
he
happy to hear
recognizes
that.
Talk TV 24 and gives me a shout out. Yeah,
That's
and
so
his
great.
co-host, who was when he lost that other, I forget what her name was, but his original
Right. I
co-host,
remember. I remember.
she
Yep.
had some life
Yep. Yep.
things coming up, and she had to step away.
Hmm.
Courtney
Oh,
Gift
Courtney. I remember her.
was,
Yes. Yes. Yes.
yeah,
She would
was going
often
to be the
comment.
co-host, and for whatever reason, yeah, it didn't
She would
work.
often,
I
didn't
don't
it?
know what the
Oh,
no,
okay.
she was a big fan and still is,
Yep.
and she was going to be a co-host, and for whatever reason, it didn't work out. It wasn't going to happen. So
Oh, that's too
she was a
bad.
guest co-host last night,
Okay.
and the other guest co-hosts were, if you remember, Kim Fry.
Of course. Kim
Yeah, she's
Welsh.
now yes, and pretty
Oh,
respected
she's
realtor throughout
great.
Boyertown
Oh,
area,
oh, she and I are
and
best buds. Yep.
um, oh, nice, okay, good. And
Hmm.
then Tom Rupert, Breezy's youngest son.
Oh my gosh, I haven't heard from him for ages. Wow.
Yeah,
But
he
Kim
was
and
the
I,
fourth. And he had a Howard Stern look. The whole theme was
really?
80s.
No
So
kidding.
Courtney looked like Cyndi Lauper, and Tom had this
No
big
kidding.
Howard Stern wig on with glasses. And I don't know if that's what he was
No
trying to be,
kidding. Oh my
or,
God. And Kim?
I don't know. But Kim didn't know, but she had like kind of like a background that was a little 80ish,
Yeah.
and
No,
I still had some knowledge, some memory from.
she and I are soul sisters somehow. Yeah. And share the same kind of energy and are a really mutual admiration society. There's no question about that. I mean,
Very
I
cool.
have stories about Kim, but I just love her, and she loves me too, I think. So,
Yeah, yeah. No, she's a
so
sweet
there we
girl.
go. Yep, 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 yep.
So
So,
today,
yes, so today, I
is this
promised. I
yeah,
promised.
is this are we wrapping
Yeah.
up the screw tape
We
letters?
are
Is that
wrapping up the screw tape letters.
okay?
Now, do you think I need to? Do you think I need to? And I'm happy to because I'm ready to. But do you think I need to reintroduce the whole concept again? Because I will.
I think everybody's got the concept. I just think if there's any of the particular ones that we've not hit on
Okay.
that
All
I
right.
think might be
So,
dangerous if we skip,
yeah. So,
at
what
least
I've been
touch on
trying,
them.
okay. So, what I've been trying to do, is to put together a portrait, several portraits actually, of those folks who look like they're on the straight and narrow path to hell, and a portrait of those folks who are who want to avoid that. And what I've ended up doing is creating a portrait which everybody will recognize as in contemporary times, of people who are really under the demon's thumb, shall we say. Okay. And we will
Yeah.
recognize them instantly. So I put together kind of what do you say, a portrait, characterization, description of those people whom the devil really has a hold of. And you'll recognize them in today's society. So let me just wing it for a while, and you
All
interrupt,
right.
please, with
Oh,
people
okay.
people whom you recognize to be ready on their way to the devil's paradise, however you want to describe that. Okay, but first of all, I think, and the most what do you say, easily recognized characteristic of these people is they're obsessed with winning. Okay? These folks are individuals who do anything to outdo their competition. And everybody, by the way, is a competition. Everybody in their world must be bested, must be beaten. Okay?
Yeah.
And they beat one another. They compete with one another over money. How much money do you have? What clothes you wear? What cars you drive? These, in today's world, are the golden calves from biblical times. Okay, we worship people who have money, clothes, power, cars, mansions. Okay, anything that looks to prove that they have more than anybody else. These we recognize, according to C.S. Lewis's Screwtape Letters, as people who are on their way to the devil's paradise. Skills of these people include a razor-sharp wit, really clever at being able to make you feel like, may I say it, shit. Okay? Who through their sharp wit or their even subtle innuendo or outright boasting showcase themselves to be the best. And these folks can even be seen in what we in the world of propaganda recognize as reverse snobbery. Oh my God, they're too important to be to be celebrated in our community, for example, as a citizen of the year. Oh my God, no, that's not for me. I'm too important to participate in these bourgeois award things. I mean, and I see that all over the place, which is just really disheartening in so many kind of ways. Anyway, so there's that false modesty known as reverse snobbery in the world of propaganda devices. And they come across also as huge victims, okay? Or martyrs even. They are doing what they're doing because they love you so much, or they love their community, or they love their country, but they're not doing it for themselves. They're doing it for you. Recognize anybody like that?
Yeah.
And they're really... You want to go there?
Well, yeah, I was going to say, you had me already going towards Donald Trump until you mentioned the quick wit. I don't see him having that as much as the other characteristics that you brought out with it. The willingness to put other people down.
Yeah.
The willingness to say how much better they are. The willingness to say that I don't have time for that.
Yep.
Well,
the wit is involved. And, I have to acknowledge it. I mean, the guy is really good, at finding the flaws and mocking them. And maybe razor sharp wit may be better expressed in terms of the ability to mock people for who they are. And I will never forget, that scene where he mocks
or even
the special. Yeah, whatever. Yeah. Yep. These are people also, just to carry on, who generate and inspire hate, and resentment. Resentments are front and center. Their relationships are always transactional. I will love you if you love me back. I will compliment you if you compliment me back. If you don't, I'll destroy you. Okay? And these people stoke fear as a way to manipulate you. And I have to tell you, I mean, we can go into this at some point if you want to, but I mean, I am, what do you say? That grabs me. I mean, I am an anxious
Yeah.
person in some ways anyway, and I worry about the future and I worry about, what's going to happen and all that. And, none of the other things really grab me at all, but fear does, fear as a way to, and the last thing I wanted to mention is that these people define what love is. For them, it's what, it's what? It's not the way I do it. They tell you what love is. They tell you what success is. They tell you what caring is. They define it for you. And because they are able to do that, there's a huge power issue involved in dealing with those kind of people. Obviously, they're superficial, materialistic, and they make fun of anything that we would call today woo-woo stuff, like feelings, people's feelings, and mystery, and moments that happen serendipitously. That's stupid. That doesn't make any sense. That you can't prove to me that has anything to do with anything else. Their focus is let's look at the past, let's look at the future, not the present. So, and these people are bored easily. They are always looking for new highs, new things, new places to visit, new things to do, no stuff to own, new experience to have. And only their way makes sense. Again, in their terms, it's not the way I do it. Okay? Right. So, they're unaware of their impact on the natural world, on nature. Okay? There's a meme, and I love this. There's a meme that goes around now and then on Facebook about being able to recognize dangerous people in terms of how your dog reacts to them. I don't necessarily trust myself and my read on what a person is or whatever, but if my dog doesn't like them, I know. Or if they don't like my dog, that's a clue. Right. Anyway, right. So to me, in the Screwtape Letters, the demons presents, Screwtape, the major demon, presents to his nephew, Wormwood, how to get into the minds of people in order to keep them from the enemy, which is known as God. Okay? So those are the ways we tempt them with all these kinds of things. We tempt them with feeling superior. We tempt them with feeling like they know what they're doing. We tempt them with, being part of a group that is superior to everybody else on the planet. But those are all kinds of temptations that the major demons employ in order to keep people in their power. So that's my portrait of people on their way to hell. And you recognize one of my favorite people in that portrait. So, and perhaps perhaps you know some people. Now this is dangerous. Perhaps you know some people who are tempted by those kinds of things. I certainly know some myself. So it's your turn.
Last night I'm sitting around watching YouTube because I don't really have cable at home here.
Okay.
I do more instructional and educational stuff on YouTube, and some informative in that, I source out some of my news research and political research on various reliable sources there, channels there. But I got to watching Anderson Cooper who did an
Okay.
interview of the one Playboy Playmate of the Year who had dated Donald Trump
Yeah.
while he was still while knowingly while married to Melania, and it began like a month after she had Barron, like a month after she gave birth to Barron Trump,
Wow.
and he's like court, and she's telling, for as much as she had a difficult time admitting that being in an adulterous relationship was wrong,
Mm-hmm.
she's telling Anderson Cooper what a great guy Donald Trump was to her. But it's everything that you mentioned. When they had sex on their first date, Trump gave her a wad of money. And she said, I'm not that kind of girl. That's not why I did this. And walked out thinking, thinking they're not going to see each other again.
Mm-hmm.
And when his bodyguard drove her home to her apartment, this is out in LA, she's sitting in the back seat of the car crying
Mm.
because that's what he thought of her.
Right.
So that touches to, the ability to make other people feel badly
Mm-hmm.
and then get them coming crawling back. And she told Andrew that Anderson's question was, do you think he loves you? And she told Anderson, I know it. We said it.
Wow.
And, when asked how many times they were intimate, she said, do you ever really count the number of times you're intimate with your spouse? And that's what she thought was going to happen until she finally realizes he leaves Melania for her. What happens when she becomes the next Melania?
Mm-hmm.
So that touches on the constant need
For
for a new high.
novelty. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And
Yep.
a new score, a new win.
Yep. Yep.
And it's just like, this is a guy who's been married 3 times, has cheated on all 3 wives multiple times.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, and you can't find this information anymore because it's been scrubbed,
Mm-hmm.
but literally bought his 3rd wife.
Mm-hmm. Well,
Oh, he likes Eastern
Ross.
European women.
Yeah.
No, he bought her.
I am weary, shall we say, of a whole conversation about how horrible Donald Trump is. I mean, shouldn't it be obvious to the most casual behavior or casual observer? And yet, what? He's in contention, possibly winning the next presidential election. Where are these people's minds? They're all
That was
going,
actually going to be my question but I kind of sort of wanted to save it to the end of today's episode, but it looks like we've come to it now. Does Wormwood have a day of reckoning? And does he see through his uncle's shit?
well, his uncle in Screwtape Letters sees that Wormwood has failed to secure the soul of the people he's been assigned. And it is Screwtape's then pleasure to I can't think of the word, to cannibalize Wormwood. He says, oh
Okay.
my, I can't wait to eat you up. I mean, that's what Screwtape is all about. And so now you are my next tasty appetizer. I mean, it's kind of strange to me, but Wormwood fails to secure the souls of these people he's been working with. And some of the things that make him a failure are kind of interesting, are curious and surprising in the Screwtape Letters. Now, one of the things, like I said in previous episodes, that surprised me in terms of those folks who were destined to hell were, an aspect of gluttony, an insistence on having it their way. They weren't flexible at all. They had a definition of what was acceptable to them and what was not. And so they, in feeling like, oh my God, this is not what I expected. This is not good enough. This is not who I thought you were or what I thought you'd present to me. That kind of gluttony is, that was a surprising way to define gluttony for me, having it my own way and not being flexible at all in accepting what people brought to you with love or what people brought to you in the best intentions wasn't ever good enough for someone like Screwtape. That was a curiosity to me. That was surprising to me. I never looked at that kind of behavior in that kind of way. But another thing, that was surprising in the Screwtape Letters was a discussion of the acknowledgement of reality beyond what we can see, hear, taste, smell, feel. Those Screwtape said what you need to do with your people in order to get them on your side was to make them think that the only reality was what you could see, hear, touch, taste, smell, feel. Any emotional kind of thing, any feeling of, awe, that's woo-woo stuff. That doesn't count. That doesn't really matter. That's a result of, having something to eat that agreed with you and created this sense of euphoria. But, that's stupid stuff. And so people who don't see any reality except physical reality, is suspect. For Screwtape, an acknowledgement about a reality beyond what we can see was dangerous, and we had to present it as stupid stuff. Another thing that was surprising in this discussion was that Screwtape demanded that we focus. We have people hope for the future or fear for the future. Let's not live in the present. Let's worry about what's going to happen tomorrow or hope for what's going to happen tomorrow. Never mind today. But for today is the only reality, according to, let's say, God. Just to use the word God. That's the only reality to God for us is what's happening right this second. The past no longer exists. The future really doesn't exist. And what was surprising, and this was kind of mind twisting for me, Ross, was talking about time in the Screwtape Letters. Okay, now let's just for a moment pretend there's God. Okay, God sees everything. There's no time. It's all the same. He recognizes what existed, what will exist, and sees only us in the present moment and who we are and what we're doing. Okay? Now, who we are and what we're doing will determine the future. And for us, it may look like our lives are predestined. That, well, okay, if God knows what's happening in the future, then he must have decided. But no. In the Screwtape Letters, it's like what we do today, yes, will determine what happens in the future, but God's out of it. He's just watching and hoping that what we will do today is to live joyfully and lovingly in the present moment. Okay. That we're not necessarily worrying about the future or what befalls us, that we trust that everything that happens from this moment on will be okay, no matter what, even if everything falls apart, and it's that humility that's giving our lives to whatever happens. And I'm not there, Ross. I worry
Not with this
about
guy.
tomorrow. Okay. I worry about not myself necessarily, but other people, what's going to happen to them, what's going to happen to the world, what's going to happen to democracy, what's going to happen to the United States. I'm not there. That's the one thing. I mean, I can get by all of these other things that I talked about, the superficiality and the materialism and, the need to, make myself feel superior. I'm not any of those things. But what catches me is my concern for tomorrow. I am not there. That's where Wormwood has an opportunity to take my soul, and direct it to a place I really don't want to go. So those are my portraits. That's what I have to share with you. Yeah.
You had mentioned about when I asked, and basically what I was asking was, does our society, does our country have a chance to pull away from this guy? When I asked about Wormwood's possibility of bypassing Screwtape.
To be honest
and
with
then you
you,
mentioned about how
I can't see it happening. I think we're doomed. I mean, look at the percentage of people who are followers of Screwtape in the form of Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Look at it. I mean,
do you have
I'm
updates
not
on
real.
that, by the way?
What was that?
Have you seen updates on that, by the way, like the number of supporters or whatever?
I
Anything that
am
gauges
at
his
a point.
support from
I'm
16 to
glad you
now?
asked me that. I'm glad you asked me that because at this point in my life, I can barely listen to the news. I am so despairing. So no is the answer to your question. I have not seen. I rarely pay attention to what's going on now because I am so. And that's that teaches me, if I pay any attention to the Screwtape Letters, that teaches me that I am so full of fear. And I might add, I am so full of loathing, which is, is not healthy for me.
Mm-hmm.
So the answer is no. Yeah. No, I haven't seen. What do you know? You want to tell me?
I'm not fine. This has been searched because I started with Donald Trump's support from 2016 and it finished it with to present. And I'm scrolling about halfway down this Google return, the different responses, and nothing is saying about having gone from one to the other. Saying it, like, and I'll go back to our interview last month or 2 months ago, actually, with Phil Repko, when he pointed out that we've seen a lot of people on the Trump train, but for those who have exited, for those who got off the train, we don't see them getting back on.
Right. Right. I mean, that's
And
a real what? Hopeful perspective. So I can only hope he's right. How's that? But the fact that we're even talking about this guy as the Republican nominee, I'm just blown away. I don't know. Anyway, so that's what I have to say about the truth.
Well, there's plenty of articles about. Everybody says, "Oh, he represents the working class man," blah blah blah, whatever. The Washington Post, even as far back as 2017, did an article on it's time to bust the myth. Most Trump voters were not working class. And I see that too, because, and here's our other guy. Howard Stern said it. He doesn't like you.
Right.
That is the best explanation I've heard
Exactly.
to explain the relationship between everyone in America and
Yeah.
Donald Trump.
Yeah. He doesn't
I
like you.
was
Yeah.
I was watching this interview by Anderson Cooper last night of the Playboy Playmate of the Year. I forget her name, Mickelson, I think. And she talked about 10 months of dating him. And she talked about the moment that he had her in the apartment inside Trump Tower, and they walked past Melania's private room. Like,
Wow.
that's my competition's room in there.
Wow.
And how sick she felt in that moment, knowing she was the other woman. And he doesn't hide
Wow.
it. And as I was saying about him being married 3 times and having cheated on all 3 and having bought the third one and having got the third one pregnant while still married to the second one,
Yeah.
that's their candidate for family values.
Yeah. It just blows my mind. And I'm just I just I don't know what I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know how anybody can support this at this particular time. I just don't get it. So I guess at this point, as my friend Bob Wood and I were talking about just before I saw you today, it's like we got to be ready for whatever happens, you know? So anyway, so you and I,
What
okay. All right,
what
go
do
ahead.
we do?
What?
I remember last fall when I was still talking more about Up the Middle than Yerg's Tonight or the shows that I've got now. You asked me about my following
Yeah.
and the amount of time you thought it would take for me to become a success, become a
Okay.
hit.
Yeah.
And I answered that it wasn't going to happen right away. Because just like the country needs the Be Inspired podcast,
Oh, God love
the
you.
country needs Up the Middle, the country needs now the Lunchtime Happy Hour and Psycho and the Psychic. They just don't know it.
So we have to just keep
What
doing what
do
we're doing.
we do
And I
to get
believe
that
that.
exposure? Yeah.
You know what? I believe that. I mean, I don't know what we can do. If you were just going to say this, I don't know what we can do in order to get the response or the following or whatever. I really don't know. And, you're in charge of that. But I just do believe,
Oh, we're
I
doomed.
do believe, I do believe that what the only thing we can do is keep doing what we're doing, and, you know, let me just insert some positivity here. Okay. Just for
Yeah.
fun. What happened to me in the last 24 hours is I took a walk around the Boyertown Community Park. Okay. And
Okay.
this month, April, is Poetry Month. Okay. And so the library has this story walk project in which there are stations around the Boyertown Park in which there are, let's say, pages from a book that are showcased on this little podium, shall we say. And so you walk around the park and you read this page of the book, and you walk a little further and you read another page of the book. And, you do that for a half a mile or so, whatever the park is. There are all these stations within the walk that have pages from a particular book. This month, the stations have poetry, and it's poetry from our local writers, Ross, who have contributed
Wow.
to the books that Studio B has published over the past 10 years. And so we have local writers whose poetry is featured on these little stations, and also art from our local artists that accompany each of the poems. And last night I took a walk around the park to the story walk to see each of the pieces, each of the poems, accompanied by pieces of art from our local artists. And it was so inspiring. I just absolutely loved it. So, anybody who happens to be listening within the Boyertown area, may I encourage them to go to the Boyertown Community Park and take the story walk and see and read the poetry and see the art from our local writers and our local artists. It's just so cool. So
Very nice.
There you go.
Very
That's
cool.
the piece. That's the piece of positivity that I'd like to leave with you today. So
Excellent.
it is.
Excellent
It is.
positivity in a
And
negative world.
I need to tell you that the Be Inspired podcast has scheduled podcast episodes now through the end of June. I think that's pretty amazing as well.
Awesome.
So I have
Getting
had
ready
a
for the
wonderful,
transition.
you got it. I have had a wonderful time in the past couple of weeks recording conversations from all sorts of people. Some of the latest ones were Lee Levengood from Everything Printing, who was who was, and of course Jack Lignelli and Ralph Borneman, and it's just been really, really lovely. And today I had conversation with John Hanna from the I'll get it. Wait a minute. From Ironstone Restaurant. He's the chef at Ironstone Restaurant.
Okay.
And he originally comes from Georgia. Okay.
Right.
And another person whom I've interviewed in the past couple of weeks is Hardy Farrow, who just bought the Longacre Company from Bally. He too is from Georgia. And we are being inundated from Georgia. And I love that the Be Inspired podcast is now being broadcast as part of 99.1 in Georgia. I'm just blown away by the connections we have had and have established in and around the Atlanta, Georgia area. So there. So those are my positivity things today.
By the time this airs, it's going to be past the date. But at least to give you the opportunity to reach out. Last week on March 31st, the interviews that aired in Atlanta were, and on Yerg's Radio, were Leslie Misko and Jack Lignelli.
Awesome.
Because of having been sick, I did not get to edit and create an episode for this week, so those two will be repeated.
I love it.
If you don't re-upload another episode, they'll repeat the previous one. So if you can get to Leslie and Jack today or during the day tomorrow, I'll send you the link again to the.
I will tell them. I'll shoot them an email and let them know they are front and center in Atlanta, Georgia. Yeah, I'll do that. That'll be fun.
And I'll text you the link again. It's wdjyfm.com is for 99.1 in Atlanta. Every Sunday afternoon at 5, you can hear the Be Inspired podcast.
Love it. I just love it. And I was telling Suzanne Biesecker, and you're a relative of her, but I had lunch with her this past week.
Mom and I were talking about that, trying to figure that out. Yeah.
And we were reviewing, the fact that we are in Atlanta. And I'm pretty sure there's a drug plastics plant somewhere close to that. So it would be interesting that our I think so. I mean, they're all over the world. But in fact, their Bear Fever Bear showcases exactly where in the world and in the United States there are plants. But I'm pretty sure because at one time Fred wanted to have a Bear Fever Bear to represent, I believe, the Atlanta, Georgia area because he wanted it to look like Scarlet from Gone with the Wind. You remember
Oh, wow.
Scarlett from Gone with the Wind.
Sure. I remember
It never
reading
happened.
about her.
Yes, I remember. Anyway, buddy, I gotta go. So I would
And I think we got
imagine
one in the can.
I think we've been recording for a good enough time. And so I really, I'm happy to have finally put together the portrait from Screwtape Letters so that people can hear and consider what aspects of their lives are in danger. I know what mine are, and it's anxiety about the future.
Yeah.
Not so much the past. I don't worry about that, but anxiety about the future
That's
is the crack in my soul that I have to be careful of. So, okay. But once
Stay
again,
strong.
just to repeat, if we are looking to stay on the path of right behavior, spend some time alone, spend some time in nature, spend some time reflecting on the value of unconditional love for everybody, and recognize that even though you may not appreciate people in your life for one reason or another, understand that they are doing the best they can, given where they came from, given what their genetic history is all about, given whatever, and try to approach everybody in your life with an understanding and an awareness that we're all in this together. So that's what I would offer. How's that?
Absolutely. Excellent advice.
Positive talk in a
Excellent
negative
encouragement.
world. We are both sides now, and I'm Jane Stahl.
And I'm Yergs.
Have a great
Thanks
week,
for
buddy.
joining, everybody.
Will I see you on Monday, probably for another episode?
Yes.